The crucial aspect of hair transplant design, men, chapter 8A, practical aspect of hair transplantation, an interactive study for beginning practitioner. Dear friends, we have divided this chapter into part 5 so that we can explain you in a better way. So to see the complete chapter, you need to see these 5 videos. This is the part 1. Part 1 includes the overview of chapter, introduction, topical zones of balding scalp and the density. Part 2 includes the estimation of recipient area, planning of hair transplant and design of anti-hairline. Part 3 includes pattern of hair loss in temporal area, temporal triangle creation, mid-scalp, parietal hump creation and vertex restoration. Part 4 video includes the author's method of designing of anti-hairline, and part 5 includes the applied aspect case presentation. This is the author's talk, means I gave the talk during HairCon 2020. Now the introduction. The proper planning for coverage of existing bald area and the design of anti-hairline are the crucial aspect of hair transplantation. A well-known fact about the hair transplantation is that there is a discrepancy between the demand of hair follicles and the supply of donor hair follicles. So another challenge for surgeon is that the hair loss is a dynamic process and the patient might need more hair transplant and he might need more hair graft for the future bald area. For the better understanding of the topical area are divided into 3 points, like points are mid-scalp, mid-frontal point, temporal peak point and the transition point. 3 major zones, frontal, mid-scalp and vertex. Then the fringes is the temporal fringe, parietal fringe and occipital fringe. They are the triangles is the frontotemporal triangle or the angle and parieto-occipital triangles. Also we can say the temporal triangle also. Then the edges are also there. Uppermost or the anteriormost portion of the fringes is called as the edges. Many times these words get mixed to each other and we get the confused. So fringe we call is the complete area and the edge is the uppermost or the anteriormost edge of the fringe or triangle, we can call it as the edges as the name denotes. So let's go by the first the points, because these points you must know to how to divide the scalp in the various topical zones. So this is the anteriormost central point of hairline. It is an important aesthetic point and the landmark which plays an important role in designing the hairline. This is the mid-frontal point or trichon it is called as, and you need to decide where you should put, and that we'll discuss in the next tutorial. The most common is it is the junction of horizontal and the vertical portion of the scalp, means the forehead and the scalp, where these two meets is the point is the trichon or mid-frontal point. Anterior temporal point, these are the sharp angle anteriormost points of the temporal fringe situated in front of the ears. These plays an important role in the framing of the face. This is a temporal fringe, this is anterotemporal point, and these are important when you are designing or you are reconstructing the temporal fringe. Then the vertex transition point, this point is situated between the posterior-most border of mid-scalp and the upper border of the occipital fringe. This is the point where the horizontal portion of the scalp starts sloping down and becomes the vertical. That's how you can understand. This we explained, this is the horizontal portion, this is the vertical portion of the scalp where the two meet is the mid-frontal point, and posteriorly vertex transition point is where is the horizontal portion of the scalp starts sloping down. So this is the point of junction of these two, we can call it. It is a vertex transition point. It is important because anterior to the vertex transition point is the mid scalp, and posterior to vertex transition point is your vertex or the crown area starts. Then the zones of the balding scalp, they are the three important zones. If we divide scalp into three areas, frontal, mid scalp and the crown. The frontal area, the most frontal balding area extends from anti-hairline to an imaginary line joining the external auditory meatus. The posterior border is little curved. Let's understand this. This is the external auditory meatus. An imaginary line joining these two external auditory meatus is the posterior border of the frontal area. So it divides mid-scalp and the frontal area. Then the mid-scalp, this is the topmost horizontal area of the scalp. The anterior border is curved line joining the apex of both frontotemporal junction. This is a curved line which is joining the both frontotemporal junctions. The posterior border is the anterior border of the vertex, which includes the vertex transition point. As I said, this is the vertex transition point. The lateral borders on both sides are limited by the temporal fringe. This is the parietal fringe and this is the occipital fringe. Now we come to the vertex. This is the posterior-most area of balding scalp in male pattern hair loss. This is usually oval, round or oblong as per the whorl pattern of the crown. It starts from the vertex transition point to the posterior curved parieto-occipital fringe of the hair. Usually this is sloping around the vertical posterior surface of the scalp, as I showed you in the previous slide. Now the frontal hairline zone, this is the anterior border of the frontal area, usually 2 cm in width, commonly called the anti-hairline. This zone is further divided into an irregular transition zone including the micro and macro irregularity and a defined zone and the forelock. So that's how we can explain. This is the anti-hairline zone. This is defined into defined zone and then the transition zone. Transition zone is further divided into micro and macro irregularities and then the forelock area and remaining frontal area. So these are the parts or the subzones of the frontal area. Now let's go on the frontal hairline zone. The frontal area as said, anti-hairline zone, then the forelock and remaining frontal area and temporal, and the anti-hairline zone includes defined transition forelock. The points and the major zones are, let's discuss the anteriormost point, then the external auditory meatus you should know, and then you should know the vertex transition point. Or if you know, then you can divide. Then the line joining these frontotemporal angle on both the side to the mid-frontal point, not external auditory meatus. Don't get confused with this that we are joining the external auditory meatus. It looks that, but this is the point where frontotemporal point is there. Then join this makes the anterior line and a imaginary line joining the external auditory meatus is dividing the mid-scalp and the frontal area, and the line horizontally passing through the vertex transition point divides between the mid-scalp and the vertex area, and their border is made by the parietal fringes. And vertex borders are made by the superior border of the occipital fringe. So that's how we decides the points and the major zone. Just a repetition. For the simple explanation, you can also explain to the patient when you are calculating the graph, which I am going to tell you in my next tutorials. Front forefinger, middle forefinger and the back forefinger, 1/3, 1/3 and 1/3, and these are usually 100 square centimeter area. This line is passing through the external auditory meatus, means this line is joining is this. Now the parietal fringe, the superior border of the parietal fringe starts from the posterior border of the superior temporal fringe, an imaginary line aligned to the tragus of the ear to start of the occipital fringe. This is parietal fringe, this is the temporal fringe, then this is the posterior border of the temporal fringe, posterior, the superior border of the temporal fringe, and this is the occipital fringe. So say, and this is the parietal fringe. So imaginary line aligned to the tragus of the ear. See, this is the tragus of the ear. These are the gauze imaginary line from where it is dividing the parietal fringe and the superior temporal fringe part. The lateral edge. This starts from lateral border of mid-scalp area, usually the natural hair part line. Slopes downwards on both the sides. The location on both the sides is aligned to lateral canthus of eye. The direction also gradually changes from forward to laterally downward. In the male pattern baldness, these lateral humps becomes alopic and needs restoration to bridge the gap between the mid-scalp and the parietal and the occipital fringe. Let's understand. This is the mid-scalp. These are the borders made by the parietal fringe or the lateral hump or lateral edge, and these are aligned to the lateral canthus of the eye. So these are the lateral border of the mid-scalp, and the hair in the lateral humps slopes down, and anteriorly they also changes the direction like this. And when there is a high grade of baldness, this drops down and there is a need to augment or uplift this lateral edge, or you call it as a parietal hump or parietal fringe, okay, so that you can meet with the anterior line to make the point of frontotemporal point. So these are the very important thing that you must know. Where is the parietal fringe, where is the, will make a repetition later on. The anterior temporal fringe, the anterior most vertical portion of the temporal fringe is the anterior temporal fringe, commonly also called as temporal triangle, making an important contribution in the framing of the face. This is the temporal triangle or temporal fringe. This is temporal peak point. This is a frontotemporal angle. This is the anterior hairline. This is the sideburn. Here there is no thinning, absolutely normal, healthy, we can say temporal fringe is there in a young boy, what we expect. Superior temporal fringe, the small anterior superior border of the temporal fringe, which starts from the apex of the frontotemporal triangle to an imaginary line aligned to the tragus of the ear. Let's understand this. This is the vertical meatus line, okay, and this is the vertical meatus line which is dividing between the superior temporal fringe and the parietal fringe and the frontotemporal angle. So superior temporal fringe is between the superior anteriormost portion of the temporal fringe. Posteriorly it is limited up by the vertical meatal line and anteriorly by the frontotemporal angle. Then the frontotemporal triangle. These typically becomes deeper and more receded as a part of male pattern baldness. These are alopic areas situated anterolaterally between the lateral aspect of the frontal area and the temporal fringe. This is temporal fringe. This is the anterior hairline area. This is the frontal area. The posterior apex of the triangle is aligned to the lateral canthus. This point is aligned to the lateral canthus, which you will come to know when I'll speak on the. You can see both these points are in alignment to the lateral canthus line. It has got a great importance when we are going to design the anterior hairline and when we are going to locate or position new frontotemporal point. Now this is a frontotemporal triangle, means the anterior border of the temporal fringe or temporal triangle and the anterior hairline. Both makes this. This is the anterior line and this is the temporal fringe, that's what I said. Then the parieto-occipital triangle. These are triangular situated in the posterior lateral portion of the mid-scalp. The boundaries of these triangles are anterior mid-scalp, anteriorly is the mid-scalp, you can see, posteriorly the vertex, and lateral is the occipital fringe, you can see. So antral is midiscale, posterior is the vertex of the crown, and lateral is the occipital fringe. These are sloping laterally, and these are very important because the parietal eminences are there in that, and when there is a lowering, then these part becomes more prominent and showing in the lateral pictures of the face when the further hair loss takes place. Now the fringes of the scalp, let us understand this is antetemporal fringe. We have already explained you vertical meatal line divide between the superior temporal fringe and the parietal fringe, and this is the occipital fringe. This was just for the repetition, and this is the occipital fringe. Now let's again revise it. Midfrontal point means anteriormost point of the anterior line. This is the dividing mid scalp and the occipital area. Which one is this point? Which one is this point is vertex transition point. Vertex transition point divides between mid scalp and the crown area. And this line, a line joining the meatus or external-auditory meatus, divides between mid scalp and the frontal area. Okay. So this is the frontal, this is the mid scalp, and this is the crown. It was just a repetition. And this is the parietal hump, which drops down in advanced grade of baldness, and you need to create. This is the parietal hump. And this is the anteriormost portion is the temporal triangle, and this is the temporal point, and the angle between this anterior border of the temporal and anterior line is temporal point and frontotemporal angle or frontotemporal point. This is the point and this is the angle. Okay. Now the consideration before performing a hair transplant. These are very important. You must know when you are planning a hair transplant and when you are counseling the patient for the hair restoration. You must know the age of the patient and the family history of baldness, history of allergy, medication, smoking, and any drug addiction. Take detailed history of patients taking medicines. Check the drug interaction with your local anesthetic agents. Note down the patient's priorities for the transplant area. Exclude the possibility of body dysmorphic disorder. Calculate the recipient and bald area and the future balding area. Scalp donor area examination, density, thickness of hair, scalp laxity, and the retrograde alopecia on the donor side. Then the availability of extra scalp donor area and the patient consent for utilizing that. Frontal zone transplant is of high priority. Avoid vertex in initial stage of transplant. Keep them in the last thing to be done as a part of transplant. Discuss the entire plan with the patient and their attendant. Explain the limitation of the hair transplant and importance of medical treatment. Discuss the technique of procedure, like all the procedures, what you are doing, what you are specialized in. Then inform patient of all non-surgical option is also important, and don't forget this is part of your consent, that before undergoing hair transplant I have explained to the patient all the non-surgical methods of hair restoration. Then expertise of the surgeon and his team for the particular technique. So whatever the technique has been asked by the patient, because the patient can demand, he wants FUT, FUE, or he wants a BST, and if you are not trained in that technique, explain why you are opting your technique and why you can't do the technique which is required by the patient. So these are very important things. And finally is the financial aspect is important. The transplant, whatever you are going to do, you should know that you should create a natural look, should not look like a transplanted head, and the matching to the rest of his or her scalp. It should not be that you have put too much of the density, in rest of the scalp density is very low, and don't take low density, put low density, and in rest of the scalp has got the high density. So you have to make a balance, otherwise the transplanted area and non-transplanted area both will look quite different. You should make it natural in appearance. Don't make low hairline, don't make too high hairline, don't make very thick hairlines means putting your multifollicular units up. So these things are going to come when I'm going to talk on anti-hairline. Now we come to the density of transplanted hair. The density of transplanted hair depends on the size of the bald area, number of grafts, thickness of hair, type of follicular unit. You must understand it and you must explain to the patient. While determining the target density for present bald area, surgeon must balance graft utilization with what will be needed for future progression of balding. The density can be defined in two ways. One is the numerical density, means number of follicle or follicular unit, how many you are going to transplant. Then the follicular density or the hair density is the number of follicles or the hair per square centimeter. Each hair arises from single follicle, so number follicular density and hair density is same. But the follicular unit density or graft density is different. The number of follicular units or the graft per square centimeter is your graft density or follicular unit density. Then the visual density. The visual density or the cosmetic density is the visual impact of hair in covering the scalp, which depends on the hair thickness, curl and the color and the angle and pattern of implantation. These 5 things are important on the how the patient is going to look. See, if you have put 100 grafts per square centimeter, but they are looking just like 25 grafts, means you have put them in wrong angle. There can be difference of the color, there can be straight, they can be very thick or thin. So the thickness of hair, curl of hair, because the curl will make more surface area coverage. The color means the how it is contrast with the skin color, and angle and the pattern of implantation. If you put more acute angle, means closer to the surface, it is going to cover more. If you make more obtuse angle, then the coverage will be less. Then the pattern means the brick pattern, or you are putting in the row pattern, again the visual density will differ. A staggered pattern or a brick pattern of implantation will also have more impact on the visual density as compared to when they are aligned in the row, one after another or one between two. So that's the staggered pattern, or we call it the brick pattern. The more acute the angle of hair emergence, the better the scalp is covered. As I said, if you make them more flatter, means more acute angle, it show more. If you make open angle or obtuse angle, the visual density will be less. The volume of transplanted hair is again important thing. The volume of hair transplant denotes the quantity of three-dimensional space occupied by hair over and above the scalp. See, volume of hair transplant is very important. These are the two things you must understand, that the visual density or the cosmetic density and how much volume you are transplanting. So the volume of transplant depends on the number of hair you transplant, the length of hair which the patient is going to keep, and the thickness of the hair. Thickness of hair is very important. If patient is taking good multivitamins, minoxidil and finasteride in a male case, then his hair will look thick and they will show more visual density. But the volume of transplant also depends on the thickness. If those hair becomes thin, then the volume will be less. If the patient keeps little long the length, the volume will be more. So that's the difference of the volume of transplanted hair, how you can alter by just changing the length. So always explain to the patient that they should keep their transplant hair little longer. Many times the patient comes and they say that I want to transplant, but I want to keep still my scalp bald. So tell them no. If you are going for the transplant, to have a good volume of transplant, you need to increase the length of the hair, because we are not implanting that number of graft which you have lost. So we are already putting the 1/3 or 1/4 of the density which normally you had. So if you want that it should look good dense or should show good volume. A slightly longer length of transplanted hair will give you better density or the visual density and also the volume of hair. The factors influencing the high density implantation. Many times the patient comes and they ask you to do the high density, but it is very important that what is the high density and what are the precautions and important things should be considered while planning for the high density. The higher implantation density provides satisfaction to the patient and to the surgeon, but not everyone not every surgeon can give high density and not every patient can afford the high density. Why? High density requires a more skilled surgical team, good quality instruments for implantation according to the surgeon's choice, a good donor supply, and recipient slits size according to the graft dimensions and factors intrinsic to the patient's skin for the survival of the grafts. An inexperienced surgical team attempting high density grafting has significant risk of damage of grafts and vascular bed on the scalp with a poor cosmetic outcome as well as chances of necrosis of the skin. So, to a novice surgeon, he should start with the low density. As his experience increases, then he can go toward the high density implantation. The density of graft placement, high density, transplanted graft density of 50 grafts per square centimeter or more is called as the maximum density. Most commonly accepted density in a single session is approximately 25 to 40 grafts per square centimeter. The gradient density means the relative decrease in density as implantation proceeds posteriorly from anti-hairline. Means the higher density is anteriorly, then low, low and low. That is called as the gradient density. The more density anteriorly and less behind gives optimal cosmetic value. A cosmetic density is usually achieved just by putting the 30 to 45 grams per square centimeter. So these are the important points. For next, you can listen the talk of crucial aspect of hair transplant design for men, part 2, in which the hairline is there. Part 3 includes the temporal triangle. Part 4 includes author's method of designing of hairline. And part 5 is the applied aspect. Thank you. Thank you very much. If you have any question, you can write to me or you can write to the author whose tutorial you are watching. I hope you like it. Thank you very much.